Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when we make a decision to distance ourselves from people who have hurt us, betrayed us, or simply don't deserve a place in our lives anymore. It's never easy. But we do it because we know our worth, because we understand that our peace is priceless. And yet after all that distance, after all the time you've put between you and them, they come back. They reach out again. They come knocking at your door, trying to re-enter your life as if nothing ever happened. Now, I want you to understand something right here, right now. When they come back after you've given them distance, it's not a random act. It's not some coincidence. It's a response to the power you've gained from pulling away. It's a reaction to the strength you've shown in moving forward, in choosing yourself over their toxicity, their disrespect, or their lack of appreciation. So let me break it down for you. Why do they come back? What's really going on when they return after you've given them the space they deserve? There are reasons. Deep psychological and sometimes even spiritual reasons behind why people circle back into your life after you've walked away. Let's get into it. First of all, they feel your absence. Let's not kid ourselves. People often take things for granted. When you're around, when you're constantly available, they don't always recognize the value of your presence. But when you're gone, when you've stepped away, when you've stopped chasing, suddenly they realize something that was missing. You ever notice how people only realize how important someone is when that person is no longer around? That's because they didn't know what they had until it was gone. When you create distance, they're forced to confront the void you leave behind. And let me tell you, the emptiness you leave is bigger than you think. It's an absence they can't easily fill. That's the power of distance. That's the power of stepping away. They need validation. They need to know that you still care. Even if they didn't value you before, they need you to prove that you care enough to let them back in. You'd be surprised how many people don't have a sense of their own worth until someone else acknowledges it. When they come back after you've given them distance, it's often because they're testing the waters, seeing if they still have an impact on you. They need to feel wanted, needed, even if it's just for a brief moment. It's a power move, plain and simple. They want to know they can still control your emotions. So understand this, they may not be coming back because they've changed or because they've grown, but because they need that validation that they can still get a reaction out of you. Don't fall for it. Know your worth. They see you thriving. There's something powerful about seeing someone level up. It's a strange, paradoxical thing, but when people see you succeeding, it either motivates them to step up or it brings out their insecurities. It's not always easy to watch someone else win when you haven't figured out how to win yourself. And that's what happens when you move on from someone, when you start to build yourself up again, to stand tall in your own life. Your success, your growth makes them notice you in ways they never did before. And that's when they come back. They come back because they see you living the life they thought they were entitled to share with you. And now they want in on the reward. But you've got to ask yourself, do you want to let someone back in who only notices your value when it benefits them? They didn't appreciate you before, so why would they do it now? They are struggling with their own issues. Often when people leave your life, it's because they haven't dealt with their own unresolved baggage. They come into your life, bring their chaos, and then expect you to fix it, to soothe it, to make it better. But when you've had enough and you walk away, they are left alone with their problems. And those problems don't just disappear. They get heavier. They start to weigh on them. And guess what? That's when they come back to you. They're hoping that you'll be there to fix it for them, to help them deal with the emotional wreckage they've created for themselves. But here's the thing, you can't fix anyone else if they're not willing to fix themselves. You can't keep putting your own peace at risk to save someone who's too proud to save themselves. Let them work through their issues on their own. If they really want to change, they'll have to do it without leaning on you. Don't let their pain pull you back in. They're drawn to your strength. People are drawn to strength. I don't care what anyone says, strength is magnetic. It's like a light that shines in the dark, and people can't help but be drawn to it. When you've walked away, when you've shown the courage to let them go, that's when your strength becomes undeniable. It's easy to get caught up in someone's games when you're still invested in the relationship. But when you detach, When you find your own balance, people start to see that strength in you. And it's intimidating to some. It makes them want to come back to see if they can break you, to see if they can regain control over you. But here's the truth: your strength doesn't belong to them. Your resilience is yours alone. If they didn't respect you when you were down, they don't get to share in your victory now that you've risen. Keep that strength to yourself and don't give anyone permission to weaken it. They realize you've set boundaries. When you set boundaries in your life, when you stop allowing people to walk all over you, it sends a powerful message. People who never respected you before, people who thought they could take advantage of you, suddenly find themselves in a situation where they don't have access to you anymore. And for some, that's a wake-up call. They begin to realize that you're not just a doormat, that you are someone who can stand up for themselves. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. And when they come back after you set them, they're trying to test the limits. They want to see if you're still the same person who was always there to pick up the pieces, the one who would forgive them without hesitation. But now you've drawn a line in the sand. And for some, that's both a shock and a challenge. They don't know how to deal with the one who knows what they deserve and refuses to settle for anything less. They don't know how to handle someone who won't let them manipulate or control them. But you do. And you've got to hold your ground. Your boundaries are not up for negotiation. They want closure on their terms. Sometimes people come back because they need closure. But not closure for you, they need closure for themselves. They need to feel that they've had the last word, that they've gotten the final say, that they can walk away feeling like they still have control over the situation. They want to know that you've forgiven them, that you've accepted their apology, or that you're somehow still invested in them. But here's the thing: closure isn't something you owe anyone else. Closure comes from within. It's something you give to yourself. You don't need them to come back to get closure. You need to give yourself the freedom to let go, to release the past, and to move forward on your own terms. If they need closure, that's their problem, not yours. You've already closed the chapter. Now it's time to write the next one. Let them figure out their own peace. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking: this sounds harsh. This sounds like I'm telling you to build walls, to shut people out, to never let anyone back in. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this: you have to understand your value. You have to understand your worth. And you have to know when to let go, when to walk away, and when to protect your peace. People will come back. They'll come back for reasons that have nothing to do with you. They'll come back because they want validation, because they want to see if you still care, because they need closure, or because they're struggling with their own issues. But don't let their reasons trap you in the past. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is whether you've grown, whether you've learned, and whether you've stepped into the person you were always meant to be. Let them come back if they want. But never let them take you back to a place you've already outgrown. Your peace is worth more than their apologies, and your future is brighter than any past they could drag you back into. When you distance yourself from someone, they often realize your worth only after you're no longer around. Your absence creates a void they can't easily fill, and this realization is what drives them to come back. People may return to you because they need validation, seeking to know that you still care or that you're still emotionally available. It's a way for them to feel wanted or needed, but you shouldn't give in to this without them showing real change. Your personal growth and success become a magnet for those who once didn't value you. They come back not because they care about your well-being, but because they are drawn to what they lost: your strength, your progress, your achievements. When you set boundaries and stand firm in your self-respect, people who once took you for granted may return to test those boundaries. However, these boundaries are essential for maintaining your peace and protecting yourself from being manipulated or controlled. These keynotes focus on the reasons why people come back after you've distanced yourself and emphasize the importance of maintaining self-worth, boundaries, and growth. When you make the difficult decision to create distance between yourself and others, particularly after they've hurt you or shown you that they don't respect your worth, you may think that your absence is just that absence. But in reality, your absence holds power. It's a force that ripples through the lives of those you leave behind. Often it's not immediately apparent, but over time they begin to feel it. And the longer you stay away, the clearer the impact becomes. At first, it may feel like the world continues without you, and that's true in many ways. But the truth is, people who have had a meaningful presence in your life, who've experienced your energy, your kindness, your loyalty, they will feel that absence in ways they may not even understand at first. People rarely recognize the value of something or someone until it's no longer available to them. And that's the power of absence. It reveals value that was often overlooked. When you decide to step back, you stop playing a role in the ongoing drama of someone else's life. You stop being the person who always responds, the one who's always ready to give, the one who's always there to fix things, to listen, to hold space. In doing so, you give the other person the opportunity to confront the absence you've left behind. It's an absence that cannot be ignored, and as much as they might try to carry on as usual, there's something in the air, something different now that you're no longer around. Your energy is gone, and it changes the environment. They may try to fill that void with distractions, other people, or temporary fixes. But the truth is that they will never fully fill the space you once occupied. It's not always obvious at first how deeply your absence is felt. People may try to convince themselves that they're better off without you, that they don't need you, that they can keep going without your presence in their lives. But as time goes on, they will start to notice the cracks in their own lives where you once stood. They may begin to feel a sense of loneliness, a sense of something missing, something they didn't even realize they were dependent on. The truth is, we often take for granted the people who make life easier, the people who make us feel understood, the people who give us a sense of stability and peace. But when that person is no longer around, the gap becomes all too obvious. There's an emotional weight to absence. It doesn't just leave a physical space, but an emotional and psychological one too. Think about it. Have you ever been in a room full of people yet felt a distinct emptiness because someone you care about wasn't there? Maybe it was someone you hadn't realized meant that much to you until they weren't present. That's what happens when you take a step back and create distance in a relationship or situation. People start to feel the emotional void that your presence once filled. And it's often in that void that they come to terms with the importance of what was lost. It's not just a simple absence of a person either. It's the absence of what you brought to the table, the emotional support, the care, the stability, the warmth, the accountability, or simply the way you made them feel seen, heard, or valued. And that can be a powerful realization for someone who never thought about the role you played in their life. People often get caught up in their own world and take others for granted. They think the world will always revolve around them and that everyone will always be there, no matter what. But once you step away and create distance, they are forced to face the reality that you may not always be there. The power of your absence lies in the fact that they begin to see that what you brought was irreplaceable. There's also something about absence that makes people reflect more deeply. When you are there, they may not always think about the value you bring. But once you are gone, they're forced to reckon with their behavior, their actions, and their past choices. The absence forces them to take a step back and consider what went wrong. In some cases, it might stir up guilt, regret, or the realization that they treated you poorly and didn't recognize the depth of your loyalty, your love, or your contributions. This can be a powerful moment of self-awareness for them. But let me be clear, this doesn't mean you should create distance just for the purpose of teaching someone a lesson. The power of your absence isn't about playing games or manipulating others. It's about stepping back when you realize your own value and when you understand that you deserve better. It's about recognizing that your energy, your time, and your heart are precious and that they are not meant to be taken for granted. When you create distance, it's a way of asserting that you won't tolerate being treated less than you deserve. It's a statement that you are not going to stay in situations where you are not valued. In that process, you give the other person the chance to reflect on their own actions and the impact they've had on you. This doesn't mean that everyone who comes back after you create distance will have learned their lesson. In fact, some people might not change at all. But the power of absence is still at work, regardless of whether they choose to recognize it. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about setting the standard for what you will and won't accept in your life. And it's about knowing that your peace, your emotional well-being, and your happiness are non-negotiable. When you step away, it's a statement that you understand your own worth and are no longer willing to accept less than what you deserve. And yet for some people, your absence can be the catalyst for change. They may realize that they took you for granted and begin to see the value you brought into their life. Your absence forces them to face their own shortcomings, their own mistakes. It may trigger a deep sense of regret or a desire to fix what was broken. And this is where the power of absence comes full circle. It's not that you want to hurt them or punish them, but rather you're giving them the space to reflect and come to terms with their actions on their own. If they genuinely care about you and value what you brought into their life, they'll recognize that they need to step up and make amends. Your absence acts as a kind of mirror, reflecting back to them the truth of their own behavior. But there's also another layer to this. Your absence doesn't just create space for the other person, it also creates space for you. It allows you to reclaim your own peace, your own sense of self. It gives you the opportunity to heal, to grow, and to rediscover your own strength. Too often we get caught up in relationships and situations that drain us. We get so invested in other people's problems, their needs, and their emotions that we forget about ourselves. And when we create distance, we not only give others the chance to reflect, but we also give ourselves the gift of silence, clarity, and time to focus on what truly matters to us. When you step away, you also make room for new opportunities, new relationships, and new growth. You free yourself from the emotional baggage and unhealthy patterns that might have been keeping you stuck. Your absence from one person's life doesn't mean your life is over. In fact, it can open up new chapters that you never even imagined. And sometimes you need that space to breathe, to realign with your own goals, and to rediscover your sense of purpose. So what happens when they come back after you've created distance? For some, it might be too late. For others, it might be a sign that they've recognized their mistakes and are ready to make things right. But regardless of their response, your absence has already done its work. It's taught you the power of your own presence, the importance of your boundaries, and the value of your time and energy. The power of absence isn't about revenge or getting back at someone. It's about self-respect and understanding that you are worthy of love, care, and respect, and if someone can't provide that, then it's their loss, not yours. The key to understanding the power of absence lies in realizing that the space you create doesn't just affect others, it transforms you. It teaches you to value yourself, to recognize your worth, and to set standards for how you expect to be treated. And whether they come back or not, you're walking away with more strength, more clarity, and more peace than you had before. Seeking validation is something that's ingrained in all of us. It's human nature to want to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be appreciated. We seek it from the people around us, from our families, our friends, our colleagues, even from strangers. Validation serves as a form of emotional nourishment, a kind of affirmation that what we're doing, how we're feeling, and who we are has value. It gives us the sense that we matter, that our presence is meaningful, and that our actions and decisions are worthy of recognition. But here's the thing, seeking validation from others, especially those who have already shown us that they don't respect us or appreciate us, can become a dangerous trap. When someone comes back into your life after you've distanced yourself, often it's because they are seeking that validation. They need to know that they still matter to you, that you still care about them, that you'll welcome them back despite everything that's happened before. This desire for validation is not always about love or genuine affection. More often than not, it's about securing their own emotional needs, healing their own insecurities, and reaffirming their own sense of worth. They may not come back because they've learned their lesson or because they've changed in any meaningful way. They come back because they want to know that they still have an impact on you, that you'll still offer them the emotional validation they crave. Let's take a moment to understand why seeking validation from others can be so powerful and why it's such a dangerous game when it becomes the driving force behind relationships. When we're emotionally connected to someone, there's a natural desire to be seen by them. We want them to see our worth, to appreciate our value. When someone is emotionally significant to us, whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, or even a family member, we often want their acknowledgement as proof that we're doing something right. It becomes a kind of emotional feedback loop. They validate us, we feel good about ourselves, and we continue to give them more of our time, energy, and affection in return. This dynamic isn't inherently bad. The problem arises when we start depending on others to validate our worth, to measure our self-esteem, to dictate how we feel about ourselves. This kind of emotional dependency leads us to seek approval and validation from people who may not have our best interests at heart. It leads to a pattern of self-doubt, where we question our actions, our feelings, and our choices, because we're constantly waiting for external confirmation. And when that confirmation doesn't come, or worse, when we're met with rejection or indifference, we feel lost, unworthy, and invisible. That's where the danger lies. People who've hurt us, disrespected us, or failed to value us properly in the past often come back into our lives precisely because they need that validation. They need to know that we still care, that we'll still make space for them in our hearts and minds, even if they haven't earned it. It's a form of emotional selfishness. They don't come back because they've had an epiphany about their behavior or because they've taken the time to reflect on how they treated us. They come back because they want to feel validated, and they want to test if they can still get a reaction from us. They want to see if they can still make us feel something, anything, that affirms their existence and their importance in our lives. But here's the hard truth: giving them that validation doesn't heal them. It doesn't fix the issues that caused the distance in the first place. It doesn't solve the problems that led to the breakdown in the relationship. In fact, by giving them validation, you're merely feeding into the same toxic cycle that caused pain and resentment in the past. They may come back and tell you all the things you want to hear: the apologies, the promises, the declarations of change, but their words are hollow unless their actions truly reflect their growth. And if you give them validation without requiring them to prove themselves through consistent, genuine change, you're not helping either of you. You're just reinforcing unhealthy patterns. This is why it's so important to recognize when someone is coming back to seek validation and when they're truly coming back to make amends. People who seek validation are often looking for an emotional band-aid. They don't necessarily want to do the work to rebuild trust, to address the underlying issues, or to make lasting changes. They want relief from the discomfort of being distant from you, but they don't want to face the hard truth of their behavior. They want you to soothe their insecurities and make them feel better about themselves without doing the necessary work to actually heal the relationship. In a sense, they're looking for a quick fix, a temporary emotional high that will help them feel good about themselves, but won't address the deeper issues that have been festering under the surface. And this can be incredibly difficult to deal with because we all want to believe in the possibility of reconciliation, the hope that people can change, and the idea that love and connection can overcome all obstacles. But sometimes people don't come back to heal a relationship. They come back because they need to validate themselves at your expense. And if you continue to give them that validation, you risk losing sight of your own needs, your own worth, and your own peace. There's also a psychological component to this that's important to recognize. When we've been treated poorly by someone, whether they've lied to us, betrayed us, or taken us for granted, we often start to second guess ourselves. We begin to wonder if we did something wrong, if we weren't good enough, if we somehow failed in the relationship. This internal questioning can leave us vulnerable to seeking validation from the person who hurt us. When they come back and express regret, or tell us they miss us, or promise that things will be different, it can feel like the validation we've been missing. It can feel like the closure we've been longing for. But in reality, what we're getting isn't closure. We're getting a temporary emotional fix. And that fix doesn't last. In fact, it often leaves us feeling more confused and hurt than we were before. This is why it's so important to resist the temptation to seek validation from those who have already proven themselves unworthy of it. It's not that we don't deserve validation, it's that we need to learn to validate ourselves. When we rely on others to give us that emotional affirmation, we put our sense of worth in their hands. But when we learn to validate ourselves, when we learn to stand firm in our own sense of value, we no longer need anyone else's approval to feel good about who we are. Self-validation is the key to emotional independence. It's the foundation of self-love, self-respect, and emotional resilience. One of the biggest mistakes we can make when someone comes back seeking validation is to think that our love or forgiveness will somehow fix them. The reality is that they need to fix themselves. They need to work through their own insecurities, their own flaws and their own mistakes. And while it's natural to want to help, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give someone validation if you've been drained by their past actions. The validation they're seeking is not a gift you need to give them. It's a reflection of the work they need to do on their own. At the end of the day, validation is something we all need, but it must come from a place of authenticity. It must come from within. And it must be based on the truth of who we are, not on the opinions or approval of others. When someone comes back into your life after you've distanced yourself, it's vital to ask yourself, why do they want to come back? Is it because they've changed, because they respect you, and because they value you for who you are? Or is it because they are seeking validation to fill the emptiness within themselves? The difference between these two motives will determine whether you allow them back into your life and whether or not you give them the validation they're seeking. Remember, validation is not something we should seek from others in order to feel complete. It should be a reflection of our inner self-worth, and it should only be given to those who have proven through their actions and consistency that they value us as we deserve. There's something inherently magnetic about personal growth. It's not just the physical changes, the external achievements, or the outward symbols of success that people notice. It's something deeper, something more visceral, the way you carry yourself differently, the way your confidence radiates, the way your energy shifts. When you go through significant personal growth, something inside you changes. You begin to realize your worth, to step into your own power, and to move through life with a renewed sense of purpose. And here's the thing, people will be drawn to that growth, whether they acknowledge it or not. Some may recognize it and be inspired, while others, those who may have once been indifferent or dismissive of you, will be pulled back in. They will notice your transformation and find themselves wanting to be part of it, if only for their own reasons. When you start to grow, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, it can create a powerful shift in the dynamics of the relationships around you. The people who were once part of your life, whether friends, family, or former partners, may find themselves suddenly drawn to you in ways they weren't before. It's not that you've changed who you are at your core. You've simply grown into a version of yourself that demands respect and is no longer willing to settle for less than what you deserve. And that growth is undeniable. It radiates from you like a light shining in the dark. For some people, your growth is intimidating. It forces them to confront their own shortcomings, their own lack of growth, and their own unresolved issues. When they see you thriving, it challenges their belief systems and forces them to take a good, hard look at themselves. For others, your growth is a source of inspiration. It motivates them to work on their own lives, to push through their own struggles, and to chase after their own dreams. And then there are those who are simply drawn to your newfound strength, your inner peace, and your elevated sense of self-worth. It's not that they necessarily want to be part of your journey in a healthy, supportive way. They may simply want to be near your energy because it's magnetic. There's a certain allure to someone who has stepped fully into themselves, who no longer seeks approval or validation, and who operates from a place of self-assurance. But why is it that people are attracted to your growth, and what does that attraction really mean? It's important to dig deeper into this dynamic to understand how and why it plays out in the relationships you have. When you grow, you stop accepting the behaviors and patterns that once kept you stuck. You become more discerning about who you allow into your life. You recognize your worth and no longer tolerate being treated poorly, being taken for granted, or being a backup option. This shift can be deeply unsettling for people who were used to having access to you, people who thought they could manipulate or control you, or those who felt entitled to your time and energy. Your growth means that you no longer fit into the box they created for you. You're no longer the person they once knew, the one they could take advantage of, the one they could walk all over, or the one who would put everyone else's needs before their own. And that can be both a wake-up call and a challenge for the people around you. Some people may feel threatened by your growth, and that's okay. That's not your responsibility. If they can't handle the version of you that has evolved, that's a reflection of their own insecurities. When you grow, you start to operate from a higher frequency, one that might be uncomfortable for people who are still stuck in their own patterns of negativity, self-doubt, and stagnation. It's not that you're better than them, but rather that you've chosen to do the hard work of transforming your life. And that alone is enough to shift the energy around you. Others, however, will be inspired by your growth. They'll look at your transformation and feel a sense of admiration. Your progress might motivate them to take action in their own lives, to stop making excuses, and to start working on their own growth. There's nothing more powerful than watching someone rise above their circumstances, overcome obstacles, and transform their life. When people see you do this, it serves as a reminder that growth is possible for anyone, no matter their past, no matter the challenges they faced. Your journey becomes a beacon of hope for those who are still struggling to believe in their own potential. But the attraction to your growth isn't always purely about admiration. Some people are drawn to it because they see in you a reflection of the person they want to be, but don't know how to become. They see you thriving and they think, if they can do it, so can I. But here's the catch: they might not be drawn to you because they want to support your journey or because they want to see you succeed. They might be drawn to your growth because they want to leech off of it, to latch onto your energy, and to be in proximity to your success without doing the work themselves. There's a subtle difference between genuine admiration and an unhealthy attachment to someone else's growth. The former inspires change, while the latter seeks to absorb without giving anything in return. This is why it's so important to stay grounded in your own sense of self as you grow. It's easy to get caught up in the attention, in the admiration, and in the people who suddenly want to be a part of your life because you've reached a new level. But you have to ask yourself, why do they want to be around me? Are they interested in supporting you, learning from you, and being a true part of your journey? Or are they simply looking for a way to benefit from your growth without contributing anything meaningful to your life? The attraction to your growth is a reflection of the energy you're putting out into the world. When you grow, you radiate confidence, strength, and a sense of purpose. You become a magnet for people who are either inspired by your progress or who want to hitch a ride on your journey. And this can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's a powerful affirmation that your growth is real, that it's making an impact, and that you are, in fact, moving forward. But on the other hand, it can attract people who want to be around you for the wrong reasons, people who want to benefit from your energy without giving anything in return. This is why it's crucial to set boundaries as you grow. You must be discerning about who you allow into your life, who you give your time and energy to. Not everyone who is attracted to your growth is worthy of your attention. Some people are drawn to you because they see you as a source of inspiration, while others may see you as an opportunity to get something they want: a connection, validation, or even material gain. You have to learn to protect your energy, to be aware of who you're allowing to share in your journey. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table, especially if they haven't earned it. And the truth is, as you continue to grow, you will become more selective about the people you let in. You'll find that the people who genuinely support you and who have your best interests at heart will rise to the surface. They'll be the ones who encourage your growth, celebrate your successes, and challenge you to become even better. They won't just be attracted to your growth, they'll be a part of it. And that's the key difference. Genuine relationships are built on mutual support and respect. People who are genuinely invested in your growth will be there for you in the highs and the lows. They won't just show up when you're shining, they'll be there when things are tough, when you're struggling, and when you need someone to lean on. There's a saying that the people who don't clap when you win are the same ones who are waiting for you to lose, and while that may sound harsh, it's true. As you grow, you will encounter people who become uncomfortable with your success, who might try to tear you down, or who may subtly undermine your progress. They may not even realize they're doing it, but their actions will show you that they are not truly happy for you. And when that happens, you'll need to remember that not everyone who is drawn to your growth is doing so for the right reasons. Some people will only want to be around you when it benefits them, when your success elevates their sense of self-worth. The reality is, when you grow, you start to outgrow certain people and situations. You start to see the world differently, and your values shift. You become less tolerant of drama, toxicity, and negativity, and more focused on what truly aligns with your purpose. As you evolve, some people may fall away naturally. And while it can be painful to let go of people you once cared about, it's essential to remember that your growth is not meant to keep others comfortable. It's meant to help you fulfill your potential. And if someone can't keep up with that growth, or if they're only interested in being around you for what you can offer them, then it's okay to let them go. So as you continue to grow, remember that your journey is yours alone. The attraction that others feel to your growth is a reflection of the energy you're putting out into the world, and while it's validating to know that your transformation is making an impact, it's essential to stay true to yourself. Your growth should be celebrated, but it should also be protected. Not everyone who is attracted to your light deserves to bask in it. You need to be mindful of who you allow into your space, who you share your energy with, and who you allow to be a part of your journey. Because as you grow, so too will your sense of discernment. And that's one of the most powerful gifts that growth gives you, the ability to choose who you surround yourself with and who deserves to witness your evolution. Setting boundaries and maintaining self-respect are two interconnected concepts that form the foundation for living a balanced and fulfilling life. Boundaries are not just physical or logistical limits, they are deeply emotional and psychological rules that we set for ourselves to preserve our well-being, protect our peace, and uphold our values. Self-respect, on the other hand, is the internal recognition of your own worth, the ability to honor your needs, and the refusal to tolerate mistreatment or disrespect from others. These two principles go hand in hand, and one cannot truly thrive without the other. In fact, without healthy boundaries, it becomes difficult to maintain self-respect. And without self-respect, it becomes impossible to set and enforce the boundaries you need to live a life of integrity. The need for boundaries begins with the understanding that you are worthy of care, kindness, and respect. Too often, we underestimate the importance of defining what is acceptable in our relationships and environments, and as a result, we become vulnerable to being taken advantage of, manipulated, or hurt. Whether it's in friendships, romantic relationships, family dynamics, or at work, failing to set clear and consistent boundaries can lead to feelings of resentment, burnout, frustration, and even a loss of identity. When we don't value ourselves enough to protect our energy and our peace, we end up overextending ourselves, compromising our values, and neglecting our own needs in favor of others. But when you develop a deep sense of self-respect, you begin to realize that your well-being is just as important as anyone else's. Your time, energy, emotions, and thoughts are all valuable resources that need to be protected. Self-respect isn't about arrogance or selfishness, it's about recognizing that you deserve to be treated with dignity and kindness. It's about understanding that you are worthy of respect, love, and consideration, no more, no less. When you develop self-respect, setting boundaries becomes an instinctual act of self-preservation, because you won't tolerate being treated in ways that don't align with your worth. One of the reasons that setting boundaries is so important is because it directly impacts your mental and emotional health. When you fail to set boundaries, you open yourself up to being overwhelmed by the demands of others. People may not intentionally try to hurt you, but when they sense that you are not willing to assert your own needs, they may unconsciously take advantage of your willingness to please or to accommodate. This can lead to feelings of anxiety, stress, resentment, and eventually burnout. On the other hand, when you set clear boundaries, you are able to communicate your limits and your needs in a way that is respectful to both yourself and others. Boundaries allow you to protect your energy and ensure that you're giving only what you can without sacrificing your own peace or emotional stability. Self-respect is the internal compass that guides the process of boundary setting. It's the unwavering belief that you are deserving of love, respect, and kindness, not because of what you do for others or how much you give, but because of who you are. When you have self-respect, you don't allow others to cross your boundaries, because doing so would be a violation of your own sense of worth. Self-respect gives you the courage to speak up for yourself, to assert your needs, and to prioritize your own well-being. It enables you to say no when you need to without feeling guilty or afraid of disappointing others. The process of setting boundaries starts with self-awareness. You need to understand what you want, what you need, and what is non-negotiable in your life. It's essential to take a step back and reflect on your values, your goals, and your emotional and physical limits. What kind of relationships do you want to cultivate? What kind of treatment do you expect from others? What behaviors are unacceptable to you? These are questions you need to answer honestly and without fear or judgment. The clearer you are about your boundaries, the easier it will be to communicate them to others and to enforce them consistently. It's important to recognize that setting boundaries is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Your boundaries may change over time as you grow, evolve, and change your priorities. For example, what you needed in a relationship 5 years ago may not be what you need today. Similarly, your boundaries in the workplace may shift as you gain more experience and confidence. It's essential to be flexible and willing to adjust your boundaries as your life changes, but the key is to always honor your sense of self-respect in the process. Setting boundaries also requires courage, especially when it comes to difficult conversations. Many people fear that setting boundaries will lead to conflict or rejection. They worry that others will be angry, disappointed, or upset if they assert their needs. While this fear is understandable, it's important to remember that true respect is earned, not given freely. If someone truly respects you, they will understand and honor your boundaries. On the other hand, if someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, it may be a sign that they are not interested in treating you with the respect you deserve. In such cases, it's essential to stand firm in your boundaries because allowing others to disrespect you will only erode your self-esteem over time. The fear of conflict often stems from a deeper fear of rejection or abandonment. We may worry that by setting boundaries, we will push people away or cause them to think less of us, but in reality, setting boundaries is a sign of strength, not weakness. It's a demonstration of your ability to prioritize your needs and your well-being, even if it means disappointing others. When you set boundaries from a place of self-respect, you create a life that is aligned with your values and your emotional health. You teach others how to treat you by showing them what is acceptable and what is not. The right people will respect your boundaries and appreciate your honesty. The wrong people, however, will push against your boundaries and try to manipulate you into accepting their terms. And while it may be difficult at first, it's crucial to let go of relationships that don't honor your boundaries, because they are not relationships built on mutual respect. In relationships, whether romantic, familial, or platonic, boundaries are essential for maintaining a healthy dynamic. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and clear communication. When both parties are aware of and respect each other's boundaries, it creates a safe and supportive environment where both individuals can thrive. But when one person consistently violates the other's boundaries, it creates an imbalance of power and fosters resentment, mistrust, and emotional pain. Boundaries ensure that both parties feel safe, heard, and valued, and they prevent the erosion of self-respect that can occur when one person constantly gives in to the demands of the other. In romantic relationships, boundaries are particularly important. Love should never mean sacrificing your identity, your dreams, or your well-being for the sake of another person. A healthy romantic relationship is one where both partners support each other's growth, respect each other's individuality, and honor each other's boundaries. If one partner is constantly overstepping the other's boundaries, whether it's through controlling behavior, emotional manipulation, or lack of consideration for the other person's needs, it's a sign that the relationship is unhealthy. Self-respect means refusing to tolerate this kind of behavior and knowing that you deserve a relationship where both people can be themselves without fear of judgment or mistreatment. Boundaries also play a critical role in the workplace. If you are constantly overextending yourself, saying yes to every request, and neglecting your own needs in favor of work obligations, you risk burnout, exhaustion, and emotional depletion. Healthy boundaries at work mean recognizing that your time, energy, and well-being are valuable and that you have the right to protect them. This means learning to say no when necessary, delegating tasks when appropriate, and setting limits on your availability outside of work hours. When you respect your own time, others will learn to respect it too. And when you assert your boundaries in the workplace, you prevent others from taking advantage of you or overloading you with responsibilities that are outside of your scope. A common barrier to setting boundaries is the fear of being perceived as selfish or unreasonable. Many people fear that by setting limits, they will be seen as difficult, uncooperative, or inconsiderate. But in reality, setting boundaries is one of the most considerate things you can do for yourself and for others. It ensures that you are not sacrificing your emotional health for the sake of others' comfort. It also ensures that when you do give, you are giving from a place of abundance, not from a place of depletion. When you respect yourself enough to set boundaries, you create healthier, more sustainable relationships that are rooted in mutual respect. At the core, setting boundaries is the understanding that self-respect is non-negotiable. Your well-being matters, your peace matters, and your needs matter. When you set and enforce your boundaries, you are affirming your worth and showing the world that you will not accept less than what you deserve. This is not an act of selfishness, but an act of self-love. And when you love and respect yourself in this way, you open up the possibility for healthier relationships, greater success, and a more fulfilling life overall. It's a commitment to your own growth and well-being and a refusal to settle for anything less than what aligns with your true self.